Do not attempt to adjust your computer. There is nothing wrong. We have taken control as to bring you this special show. The Mothership flies one more time through cyberspace. My name is Dobie Maxwell, also known as the King of Uranus, and we are here in the compound that's so secret. If we told you where it was, we'd have to kill you, and we don't want to do that. We want to entertain you. We've got a wonderful episode. To my right, to your left, Greg DeGuire, the uber geek and ultimate kegler. What was your high bowling average, Greg?
My high average at one point in time was about a 225.
And I don't think we have anybody that knows as much about geeky subjects as you that bowls that well.
Maybe.
Very,
I'll take it.
unusual talent. Also, to his right and to your left is Carrie Turner, our Millennial Falcon. Carrie, you're legal now. And how was your first cocktail?
My first one was amazing.
When you were 9.
A couple people in this room went out with me that night, and I did well.
Well, Adam is our technical staff, our one-man technical staff. He's your boyfriend, so
yes.
he's your hi, Adam. He's one of these days we might have him on camera. We're not exactly sure yet.
It's been on one. Out of 27,
we
he's
have
been
a
on
black
one.
line over his face, so that's a good thing.
Yep.
This is Al, our pickled cosmic pal. He is the censor. But we also have a special guest today, and I will let Carrie get going as we can start. We have an author with us today, very talented gentleman.
So episode 26, we invited our friend James Mahoney tonight. He's an author.
Welcome, James.
Good to be here.
I can tell by the look in your face you're a little skeptical. We are out of our minds, but in a friendly,
That's what we're about here.
Customer service kind of a way.
Yeah, I'm ready.
That's where we work, customer service, so we got that down.
So tell us about your book.
Oh yeah, actually I have 3 books with me here today.
I haven't even read 3 books, and you've written 3 books. That's pretty talented.
But yeah, the first one here is the Wisdom of a Hindu Epic, which is a collection of over 2,500 wisdom quotes from the great Hindu epic, the Mahabharata.
And I've read that one. A good majority of it.
Now this is the Mahabharata right here, and is this a similar? Which book was first?
This one was the first edition, and I changed the title to this one here, Wisdom of a Hindu Epic.
Is there a reason for that?
The reason is that not too many people here in the West are familiar with the Mahabharata, but they're more familiar with the term Hindu.
All I'm saying is that would make a great Scrabble word. If you could put that out there, you would get the triple word score. You'd probably get about 250 points.
Win the game right there.
One word.
Exactly. X or a J.
Right next to Quijibo.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, that was the first edition. I decided to change the title for just the purposes of people aren't as familiar with what the Mahabharata is, but they're more familiar with what...
Now I'm a complete idiot as to what it is. Could you explain what it would be?
The Mahabharata is one of 2 of the great epic books of Indian literature. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 of them. The Ramayana is one of them, and then the Mahabharata is the second one. And
these are scripture books?
They're considered scripture books of India, yes.
Okay.
But they're epics in the sense that they're a great story that's told. And so they're similar to like the Greek epics of the Iliad and the Odyssey, except they're much longer, and obviously they're from India instead of Greece.
And he categorized them all into sections. So my great-grandfather died over the summer, but I remember he gave me the book the same week, and I looked through some of the scriptures that were in there, and they were interesting. They were very insightful.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of wisdom in it. So that's one of the things that when I read the story, I just was amazed at how much wisdom is in there, and most people aren't aware of the wisdom that's in the Mahabharata, except for there's one book that they usually translate out of there called the Bhagavad Gita. And if you know anything about Hinduism, that's the most popular book that people read. But while it's a part of the Mahabharata, it's a very small part of it. And so there's a lot of other wisdom that's in the other part of the epic that most people...
Could you share some of the wisdom? Like my grandpa always told me, never buy a TV from a man who's out of breath. that was pretty wise. I'm thinking it was probably stolen, but when you're 8, you don't know that. So maybe share some wisdom?
Sure. There's a couple of quotes that I put on the back here that I do like. I'll just read one here. It says, "He who being one thing but represents himself as another thing to others is like a thief and a robber of his own self." So, it's just kind of these little wisdom statements, and I thought it would just be a great idea to just categorize them all and make it available for people to see what kind of wisdom.
It's really good if you're doing like a research paper too. You can just go straight to what you're looking for.
Confucius was always famous for his quotes of wisdom too. Where does he fit in with all this?
Yeah, so Confucius, he's from China.
Okay.
So he lives about 500 or so BCE, around that area. They call it the Axial Age, the religious Axial Age, because you got the Buddha, you got Confucius, you've got Ezra over in Palestine, where Israel is. At that time, he's recording the Torah down because they had lost it when they got put into Babylonian captivity. So you got all these people, these religious figures during that time period that are coming out, and that's why they call it the...
Let's back up here for the average person watching that would have no idea, which would be me too. What is the batting order of the time frame of when people live? Because people always think that Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad all got together and played Yahtzee on Thursday nights and they bowled together, but they didn't live even close to the same time and in the same place.
No. Jesus would be like 500 years after Confucius, after Buddha.
500 years?
Yeah,
Wow.
about 500 years, yeah.
Did he have access to any of the materials?
He may have had access to some of it because there were traveling roads from Rome that went all the way over to India and possibly to China as well. So if Rome knew about the Indian tales, the Hindu tales, then it's very possible that the Israelites did as well. Which is interesting because Jesus is believed to be an incarnation of God, which that is one of the central themes of the Hindu religion, which came many, many centuries before Christianity. So that's food for thought. But on that note, with Christianity and talking about Israel, I have two other books here that I co-authored with my brother. One here is about the New Testament reference guide.
Now, no offense. What would make you go to this type of subject? Most people want to write a book about baseball or, I don't know, movie stars or something. You went right into the deep end here.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
Well, I grew up religious. Pentecostal was my upbringing, and so my whole family was into that. But once...
How many books are in the Bible?
How many books? I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Our next guest.
You should know. How many books?
I believe 64.
66.
66?
Really?
Yes. And it's 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New. 3 times 9 is 27.
My mom's watching
There you
this
go.
video, ashamed of me.
I learned that when I was 10 years old. I was forced churched as a kid. I had to go to the
Same
Pentecostals too, the Holy Rollers.
Yep.
And my grandpa told me, he said, you know what? Explore all the religions that you want to. There's no pie in the sky. It's all bullshit. You're going to wake up one day and discover that. And I did. And I don't ever make fun of anybody who has religious beliefs. I open mind. We're glad you're here. But I think we all need to have our own decision. And I think it changes over time.
Well,
Some people are born, I don't believe any of that as a kid, and they go into it as an adult. Some people are forced church and they don't believe. Other people are just, they buy it all from the beginning. Now, did you buy it from the beginning?
I was raised, I did believe, growing up. Absolutely. But as I got older, I started really studying in detail what the religions taught and getting down to the roots of the text and the history behind the different religion that I believed was Christianity at the time. And so I just, through those studies, my beliefs changed as I studied one religion and then the next religion. And so my beliefs today, I would say I'm more of like an agnostic, but I love studying religion and in particular Hinduism because it's so old, but it has such entertaining, fascinating, and just exotic stories to it that it's amazing these people actually imagine this stuff.
Rest of the table, thoughts on religion? Again, I'm not making fun of people if they do. If it works for you, that's fine.
And I think we talked about this last episode too. Mine's very varied, and I don't think I know what I believe in still, but we've had conversations because we were at the same work together, and we've just had hours and hours of conversations about this subject. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting
Because
to
it
think
brings in
about.
a lot of different
Yeah.
things from every religion too that you might believe in.
Think about how much the world has changed since religion came around. I used to think, back in the day, it's kind of an opiate for the masses. It's not for you to find out. God is behind the curtain, and he'll pull the strings if and when he's ready, or she's ready, or whoever the God is. Ray, what do you think about that?
Well, I wasn't raised very religious at all whatsoever. Most of my Sunday mornings are spent bowling, making pyramids of beer cans. So anyway, but yeah, I was not raised religious at all, and I don't knock anyone who is religious. I mean, I'm one of those that I think that's a Gnostic too. I mean, you have to see it to believe it. Is that where that goes?
Yeah.
So I'm not. I mean, I don't know if it exists or not. I doubt there's an old white guy living in the clouds who sees everything we do, and if there is, I'm going to call him Santa Claus. So, tough call. I don't know. There's lots of things in this universe that we have that we know nothing about. Is it possible that there's some kind of master being out there who knows all about us? I think it's possible.
Right.
I can't discount it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And as far as what the Hindu imagined, maybe they didn't imagine at all.
Right. We're
Maybe what they were describing were aliens and aliens fighting in ships. I mean, a lot of that's.
Yep.
There's a name of a specific ship that's described and it's given a word.
Yeah.
And the word it's
probably talking about the Vimana.
That's it.
There you go.
That's a Toyota, isn't it? The Toyota.
Yeah.
Like an SUV kind of thing.
Nuclear powered.
Nuclear powered SUV.
But even
sunroof.
Some of what they're describing is nuclear war.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things that really interested me about the Mahabharata epic in particular when I read it, was besides the wisdom that's in it, is just the crazy, fantastic stories, which are like, how could they actually just make this up? You know, were they actually seeing something?
Well, most authors will tell you if you're going to start writing a book, write about what you know, right?
True.
So most of these people, so they must have saw something that give them the idea. So exactly what is it that they saw? Unless they had their hands on some really, really good weed at the time and just imagined all this stuff. I mean, again, anything's possible. Yeah, opium, that'll work too.
In your studies of religion too, would you say that the Mahabharata had the most kind of paranormal ties out of all the stuff you've read? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is it's one of the longest religious texts in the world. It's about 2 million words long. So it's separated into 18 different books, 2 million words long. And
spell check could take about an hour in that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine him chiseling it away.
You try to load it up in Microsoft Word and your computer just freezes. But yeah, there is some just fantastic stories in there, and so I can name a few of them and start talking about those if you want.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Go.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the stories that I found really fascinating was that there is this. First of all, I have to set up the story basically is that there's two groups of gods that are talked about in the Hindu scripture.
Big G or little G?
They can be both big G's.
Oh, okay, all right. Just want to know.
Little G's, it doesn't really matter. They're in the class of gods.
All right.
So there's the Devas and the Asuras, and they're like cousins to each other. It's almost like in the Greek ancient religion where you had the Titans and you had the Olympians. So there's these two groups that are fighting against each other.
Okay.
So you got the Asuras and the Devas. Well, the Devas are constantly doing battle against the Asuras. The Asuras are doing battle against the Devas.
Mm-hmm.
So the Asuras decide they want to build this city, which is actually 3 cities that come into one, and that it will be invulnerable. Now, the great god Brahma said you can create this city, but it can't be completely invulnerable. There has to be somebody that knows its weakness. And so then Shiva is one of the gods in Hinduism that's the destroyer, and he's the one who says, I'll destroy it if necessary. So he's the one that actually knows the weakness of the city.
I'm going to interrupt you 1 second here. Are these cities on Earth?
That's what I'm getting to here.
I'm sorry,
No, it's all good.
Don't want anything.
It's all good.
We're on Uranus. We're supposed to be on Earth.
Oh, it's all good. So they are here around Earth, but just the way it describes it is that the 3 cities, there's one that's made of black iron that's on the Earth. Then there's one that's made that looks like silver that's in the atmosphere. Then there's one that's made above the atmosphere, that looks like gold. And these 3 cities, when they go to battle with the Devas, they would join together into one city and become basically invulnerable unless you knew its weakness. And the way it describes it is just like it's a flying city almost.
Oh, wow.
And it says that when they do battle between the other gods, the Asuras and Devas, that there's these big flashes of light, there's rumbling in the sky, so it sounds like almost you got missiles maybe, maybe lasers.
Yeah. Sure.
The other thing that they did with this city is because the Devas had a beverage of immortality, which was called the Amrita or also the Soma.
Miller Lite.
Yeah, but the
I call it blue
Asuras,
stuff.
the Asuras didn't have this, so they were vulnerable of being killed. And so what they also did then was they constructed a lake within this triple city that would resurrect their dead or heal their wounded. So whenever one of them died or they got wounded, they'd throw them into this lake, and then they'd come back out of it resurrected. Now that sounds almost science fiction-y to me.
That sounds like the Bacta tank.
That's
in
what I
Empire
thought about
Strikes
in
Back.
Star Wars, yeah.
Whereas L. Ron Hubbard didn't write this.
So yeah, this is a story that's in the Mahabharata.
Okay, let's get, so for time purposes, when was this story written?
The whole Mahabharata story, they say was written around 400 or 500 BCE. But the stories had to exist before then because there's so many stories that are included because there's earlier scriptures in the Hindu religion, and a lot of those stories are repeated in the Mahabharata. So you've got Upanishads, or you got the Vedas, which are much, much earlier than the Mahabharata. And those are included.
That's pretty advanced technology for that far back.
It is.
So, Greg, would you say that, talking about writing about what you know, they were basically monkeys throwing poo back then. They didn't have any technology. I got to believe there's got to be some truth in there somewhere.
Well,
and I'm pretty skeptical, but I think, how are you going to make that up?
So we're going to tiptoe on ancient aliens for just a moment. Zechariah Sitchin talks a lot about this and about how the planet X, planet Nibiru, where the Nephilim, they're so-called the giants, are spoken about in the Bible. So, but their particular race is called the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki were in ancient Sumeria, which is more or less the first society, well, widely recognized as the first livable society on Earth. So where do they get all their stuff from? So their technology has it, or their stories that were of the Sumerian text that were translated, they talk about these beings that were around. So the Anunnaki created humans to do work for them. But every once in a while, the Anunnaki would breed with these humans and create man as we know it. So it's possible that the Anunnaki, what they were doing when they were warring with each other over what to do with us, that's what some of these stories are talking about. I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, if you look
definitely a possibility.
If you look at the Noah's flood and the Epic of Gilgamesh, most Bible stories had a start in stories that started in Sumeria.
Yep.
So it's hard to say, which came first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, it depends on what religion you most want to put your beliefs into.
Right.
Zechariah Sitchin talks a lot about this. So does Eric von Daniken and all of his Chariots of the Gods, stuff like that. And some of it's stuff, because there's no circle end to it, so you can't really prove it or deny it, but they're interesting stories. But that's why religion's out there, to tell you, well, here's what our gods did. But then again, what if they're not gods? What if they were beings from other planets? I mean,
well, yeah, that's definitely the question. And if you consider, even in the Bible, you have angelic beings coming from what's believed to be the supreme God, the creator of the universe, who are messengers between us and God. But who are these beings?
They're like the assistant district manager of the universe. You can't talk to the big guy. You got to talk to the little guys and fill out a memo and send an email.
There's something
appointment
wrong
for a later date.
There's something wrong. They have to go get the key for the register and figure it out.
Authorization.
Yep.
Now, I will say this. Let's go back to the flood a little bit. That's it.
Sure.
That has been around a lot, not just in the Bible.
Yeah.
So do you think that there's something to do with that? I mean, was it...
Well, the question is, were they talking about the same event, or were there separate events? That's the key question in all of this. Is it possible? I mean, look at the Earth as they knew it at that point in time. So Sumeria at the time thought that they were the only ones on the planet. So if a river flooded out the town, to them that's the whole planet.
Yeah.
That's all that they know. So the same thing could have happened back in the days of Noah. So look, we just had a flood back this spring. So you have the lake flows over. It's the flood to end all floods. Well, okay, your town got flooded out. That doesn't mean the whole world got flooded out. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say if separate floods happen, or again, if they're talking about the same event. Knowing now that there are similar stories in both texts, you have to wonder whether or not they're speaking about the same event.
Yeah, on that note, it is interesting. There is actually a flood story in the Mahabharata, and it is actually somewhat similar to Noah's flood.
Now, I wonder if that was the flood that wiped out the dinosaurs. All jokes aside, I mean, there's all kind of earth-ending events that happen from time to time, and what if that was the Earth restructuring itself after the comet hit? Maybe they're taking it that far back. That's probably overthinking, but again, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility.
I can't imagine trying to round up two of every animal.
Not unless they're little DNA samples, maybe.
That's going to lead into our next episode. We'll get more to that. Next
I got two
episode.
porcupines. Damn, they're both boys.
It's a sticky
I
situation.
got a gay porcupine there.
But so you want me to continue with some other stuff?
Please do, James.
Yeah,
We're starting with
yeah.
James Mahoney is our guest. If you want to get
sure.
let's plug it. First of all, before you continue, how can we get hold of this book? Now, this is the obsolete one here.
Yeah, that is the obsolete copy.
Carrie can have that one.
It is my copy,
Okay.
actually.
Now, this is Wisdom of a Hindu Epic. Much easier title.
Yep, much easier to read.
How can we order that if someone would like
It's
to?
available on Amazon.com, and you can also find it through my website called epicvedas.com.
Epic Vedas.
Yep.
VED.
Yep.
Like Darth Vader.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So,
Epic Vedas.
as you were saying, so I want to make sure we can get them.
Sure. Yep. Okay. So yeah, there's a few other stories in there that come to my memory. One of them is kind of interesting because there's this great war that the whole story leads up to, and all these heroes that are going to fight in this war are basically the gods who are reborn, either from the Devas or the Asuras. And so there's special circumstances that go about some of these heroes' births, and one of them is that it says that this one hero, Drona, does not have a mother. He only has a father, and he is born from a pot. Now, that is a strange thing to say. Like, why would you say that he's born from a pot and somehow he's superior to other men and he's this hero that fights in this war?
That's a good pot.
Yeah, it's either a really good pot, some magic, or he's maybe cloned or grown from a DNA sample, maybe.
Immaculate conception.
It's a theory.
Interesting.
It's a theory.
Well, they probably had to have all that stuff. If the idea is ours here, it's got to be out in the cosmos billions of years beforehand. Would you not think?
Yeah, I think that, the universe has been here for billions of years, so...
I mean, the theory always is, why did the UFOs start coming in the 1940s? Because we were farting around with the nukes. And it's like, oh my gosh, the 2-year-old's got the gun, the safety's off, let's go see what's going on over there.
Yeah, that goes right into my next story really well.
All right, good.
Because...
I'm here to help you.
There's a story, again, in the Mahabharata about after the war, there's these two heroes that face off against each other, and the weapons that they use are so devastating that it says that a couple of the gods actually show up in the sky and they say, we told you never to use these weapons because it creates drought for like 12 years, hair and nail falls out. And the way it describes the weapon is this huge ball of fire that causes the earth to tremble, the mountains to shake, the trees to topple over, all these different things like that. And it's like, well, that almost sounds like an atomic bomb.
Yeah, kind of does.
And the gods actually showed up in the sky, which you were alluding to, is like UFOs. Why are they showing up when we got nukes and all that sort of thing? So
fascinating, bud.
Yeah.
Did you read all 2 million words of the?
I did.
Wow.
I did indeed.
That alone deserves a prize. I wish we had some kind of something. Very, so you could be totally making this up, but we wouldn't even know.
Well, I can always send you the references.
I do believe you. Excellent. How long has the book been out?
The book's been out since 2016.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was when the first edition came out, and then I revised it a few months later.
What did you do? Did you add more stories to it?
No. The only thing I did to it was just change the title of the book. That's all I did. Nothing else. Maybe a typo or two, but...
No offense. How do you see it? How's it selling?
Oh, so far it's pretty good. I still got to do more marketing for it, but it's going pretty.
Well, you're on this show. You might sell 3 or 4 copies.
Hey, that's good. Every copy adds up.
Our next album is going to go aluminum.
Maybe we went zinc.
You said the Torah one sold pretty well, right?
Yeah, this is actually the first book that I did with my brother, and we did this. Came out with it in 2009, so it's been out for a good 9 years now. We've actually sold about 3,000 to 4,000 of those so far.
Wow, I mean, no disrespect whatsoever, but I wrote a book and I was told that 99% of all books written never sell 1,000 copies.
Yeah.
So
we've overcome that threshold.
No,
there
nice, congratulations, much respect, because I know how hard it
Thank
is to write even one book. Much less 3.
When the Dead Sea Scrolls came to Milwaukee years ago, did you go check that out?
I did not. I wanted to, but I couldn't go. I think my brother went though.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, what did you get to see him?
Well, yeah, they actually had pieces of it there. For those of you who don't know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's more or less their first copy of the Bible, but it's written in Aramaic, which is the language of Jesus at the time. So that asks a lot of questions. Who wrote it, right? And why was it written at... A lot of the stories were afterthoughts.
Yeah.
So that means that somebody was scribing at the time and just decided to hide this stuff in a cave, and the makeup of the cave, these things stood the test of time.
Oh yeah.
And when they find these, like in the 70s, 80s, these things were dug up. It's something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty recent. I want to
yeah,
say.
and it's not like someone put them there on purpose. Someone had to have left them there because they weren't really. Some shepherd found them.
Yeah.
And these are not easy places to get to.
What was he doing in the cave?
Probably best we didn't know.
Yeah.
But he tried selling them without even knowing what he had. But the whole thing, the thing at the museum, they had ossuaries there, and ossuaries are burial boxes. They had coins at the time. I mean, they had a lot of cool stuff there. They had some 1,000-year-old copies of Bibles. I mean, I thought it was a really cool exhibit. Whether you're religious or not, I thought it was a cool exhibit.
From a historical point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
From a historical and even a religious point of view, it's an incredible find because before we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, the earliest copies that we had of the Torah or the Old Testament were like from the 1400s. And so it really validates how accurate some of the Hebrews copied a lot of their texts by finding a text that's 2,000 years old that has almost
word for word,
what
because
was
the Bible
we
wasn't
had.
written until 325. The council was the Council of Nicaea or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm probably enunciating the word wrong, but I always figured if you tell a story today about something that happened 3 days ago, the details get kind of muddled. They get kind of muddled together. Anyone see Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Anyone? So I call this the Jeff Spicoli theory. And I always say this anytime you're going to retell a story. So Jeff Spicoli is in Mr. Hand's history class. He knows his history because he sees a globe at the end of the classroom. So Spicoli orders a pizza into the classroom, and Mr. Hand starts eating the pizza, and he calls Mr. Hand a dick. Right? So by lunchtime, the stories the kids are telling that he pulled a knife on Mr. Hand and threatened his life. Well, that story changed in 3 hours. Imagine what 325 years does to stories. But finding these scrolls eliminates all that speculation of maybe they got it wrong. Turns out they didn't. They had everything word for word pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it still doesn't cover the whole vast history all the way back to Moses.
No, but
it is still a very significant find.
yeah.
Very significant.
Greg has an interesting theory. He talks about how Babylon was Iraq. Modern day Iraq is Babylon.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of probably secrets and religious artifacts and things there.
Yeah.
That's why we're over there as a government. We're not there for the war. The war is just basically covering our archaeological digs.
I come up with that a while ago
Hoping
because
to find some rubbish.
there hasn't been any significant archaeological digs in Iran and Iraq for a long time because it's such a hotbed of war.
Yeah.
So what if the whole war, once we got Saddam out, if we needed to get him out in the first place anyways, but what if all of it was a cover-up for digs? Right, all the news that we got about these insurgents and all the camera footage, what if it's all file footage? I mean, we don't know. All we know is what they send us. We don't know what's really going on. I mean, my boots on the ground. I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
The military can cover up all kinds of things.
Definitely.
What if the military and the U.S. government buys into the premise that there is this planet X called Nibiru, and these Anunnaki were real, and they were in Sumeria? All their stuff, or any proof of their existence, might still be there. So this is just a giant cover-up to do some digging and find some stuff.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, there's a lot of people who have searched for a lot of these religious artifacts throughout history because they believe there was something, powerful to these things.
That's my next Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones Part 10. Indy goes to Iraq, patent pending, trademark, it's all my idea.
James Mahoney is our guest. Wisdom of a Hindu Epic is one. There's 3 books. Let's plug the other 2
Sure.
one more time. I'll let you do that because it's your books.
All right. Well, this one is called the Torah Concordance, which is a categorization of all the commandments from the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible.
And last but not least,
This is the New Testament Reference Guide, which is also a categorization of a lot of the commandments from the New Testament, from Jesus himself or from some of his disciples or apostles.
Nice.
beautiful. Thanks for being our guest. We do appreciate it.
Sure.
That was great stuff.
Great to be
Yeah,
here.
Cool.
good stuff.
We are led at the Mothership right now. Carrie, how can people get a hold of us if they have an idea
right.
for a guest, for a topic, and if they want to maybe get in contact with James?
All right, we got an email at tinfoiltalkshow@gmail.com, or you can talk to us on our Facebook pages. We have the Gregory DeGuire friend page, and we have the Mothership Connection fan page. And that's pretty much it.
That is it. The Mothership lands for another episode. Thank you for listening. My name is Dobie Maxwell, the King of Uranus. Don't go anywhere. Next time we're coming back with all new material. We'll be back when the Mothership flies again. Thanks for watching.